Alright. Let's do this. Gonna play as my warrior. Can't use any of these yet, but assuming I live, I will. Already. Yeah, but defenders in this bullshit.
How are you?
I'm super, thanks for asking. Oh god, cat, what the fuck? Hi. Hello, sweetheart. Oh, how you little baby doing? What is my little baby doing? Why'd you jump at me like that? It was all awkward and weird. You too, girlfriend. We used to go 4-hour nap. Can Daddy play this game now? Is that cool? Come on, get down. Alright. I think I just go. Well, I guess it's just. I could. You know what? I'm gonna send them my other alt. Because I'm a good person. That's what good people do. Terrible reference. Alright.
See you later.
Let's see. So it's getting yeeted into oblivion? Oh, somebody's messaging me. 1 second. Wait, where's like an anvil thing at? Is that what I needed to craft earlier? Is this thing? Oh, blacksmith hammer.
Hey there.
Clearly I never played as a blacksmith character.
Safe
Need
travels.
something?
Where do you buy a blacksmith
See you
hammer
around.
at?
Something.
This guy can't sell me one.
It's all their lines.
I have to go to Stormwind, don't I?
Be careful.
Bruh, how do you die? Alright, 1 second. We're hooked into Stormwind. Howdy. Bacon maker. Making bacon pancakes, that's what I want to make. Bacon pancake. Don't judge me. I have no idea what that dude's name is. Okay, I tried. Meow. We slept for like 4+ hours straight. Like, let me play a video game. My cat's like, "Meow, how dare you play a game?" Meow. Drake Mallard, like that name. Lady, let me play a video game. There's plenty of rooms in this house for you to like lay down and chill. If you're gonna be weird and jump, better do it now before I actually start playing the game. Jumping, jumping, jumping. Negative 15 agility. Jeez. Oh, no shit. Wait, hold on. Alright. So people are trying to get layered, but it doesn't matter. Like, it happens on all layers at the same time. On the bright side, I may potentially get an Onyxia buff. Actually, I wonder if this guy over here has, like, the hammer. Instead of having to go all the way down to Dwarven District. I think that's what it's called, right? Yeah. But I do have a quest to turn in. Why'd I have a level 15 quest to turn in? Okay. Meow. What is a little girl?
I buy and trade.
So apparently not. Well then. Damn. Zoom
For the
zoom.
Alliance.
I'm not a smart man. This game is so chill compared to retail. I just have my own goals, go everything at my own pace, like everything's fine. What is it? You're being weird. She just sit on the other chair, just staring at me. One of you guys sells it.
What can I get for you today?
Only you, apparently.
Watch your
Alright.
back.
Guess so I'm here. Where's the anvil? This thingy? Yeah. Am I about to make that? So I'll make like one of these. He has a shit ton of these after. Upgrade. Making bacon pancakes. That's still stuck in my head. Why are you staring at the wall now? Come here, you. Come here. Whoa, little girl. What is it, huh? What is it, little girl? Hmm? Oh, now you want to get on the shoulders? You're such a weird one. Welcome to my cat, y'all. Hope I don't need these for anything else. Dude's guild's name is Goth Girls. I can respect that. About to enter everything. Pals for life. Yeah, I did it. Alrighty, buy my shit on.
Great to meet ya.
Ruby, we out of here.
Keep your feet on the ground.
Where's my PB? People are dumb. Sativa, what a name. Four AM next raid. Fuck. People are crazy, man. Alright. With it. I want trigger two, I'm here, fuck it.
I buy and trade. Farewell. Need help? Light bless you.
Hey, my character looks like me. Bald and ugly. Alright. Yeah. Luckily, I'm not that short. So my goals are 14 and 18. I'll turn that quest in first, and then head this way. And hopefully be high enough level to do Hogger.
I supply only the finest goods.
Hello? I have not drank caffeine in so long. I'm drinking milk. Terrible idea at like 3 AM. But here we are. I get tired of drinking only water. Corpses. Let the bodies hit the floor. I don't have the gold thing or gold tooth quest. It's already did it. Damn, I'm ahead of myself. Yeah, I did it. Oh, I missed. I'm ready. Ooh, savey. Look smash. Swing and a miss. Alright. Ooh, I hit hard as fuck. And what just happened? That was weird. I gotta see that I had milk in my mustache real good though, didn't I? Just flavor saver things, you know? How the fuck did it change scenes? That's so weird.
What can I do for you?
No. Well, I guess it's... Oh my god. Better bracers, though. I just grabbed it, so. Yoink.
See you around.
Alright. Essence copper. Get over here. I need to make some bullshit. Ooh, double copper. Double... Oh, here's something else mining. No! Sons of bitches. I can't rush while I'm in combat. Not copper, and I want it now. Feels really weird when they do just one-handed. Doesn't feel right. Oh shit, another one. There we go. Wait, what am I doing? Easy check what that's what I'm doing. I have the attention span of a small rodent. Underground death trap. No, thank you. I want to wrestle me a bear. Good for your bear. He's going down for the count. Fun fact, in real life, bears are disgusting creatures. Big true. Looting is slow as shit. All I got was 2 nodes out of that? Ooh, another one though. I feel like James Woods on like a Family Guy. It's like, ooh, a piece of candy. Ooh, a piece of candy every single time I see a node. No. They can't all be winners. I need something to listen to. I'm going insane. Let's see. Well, listen to a conspiracy podcast, I think. Or listen to a different one. Oh, there's two T's. I'm dumb. This guy might have something for me. Let's see. I probably don't have money for it.
Looking for something specific?
So yeah, level 19, 17. Not using that. Trash for me. Groovy.
Have a good one.
Let's see. There we go. I want New World next week. Well, it's been a while. Is there not a new one? Holy shit, that's from the 12th. That's like 2 weeks ago, dude. I guess I don't have a choice, do I? Let's see. Fuck it.
Welcome back to New World Next Week. I'm James Corbett of CorbettReport.com.
And I'm James Evan Pilato of MediaMonarchy.com. Crazy, this could be used by Nazis.
What?
We've got that story plus the raving Israelis. But first, on this all-Zio-Nazi World War III episode...
What the fuck?
Folks might know I do a This Day in History segment every morning
Jesus
on
Christ.
my morning show.
Which
Last
one did I
Friday,
pick to
October
watch?
6th, was the anniversary of the start of the Yom Kippur War. And I said, watch out, occupied Ziostein likes to, have wars on their holidays. And so it goes. Hamas launches large-scale combined attack on Israel. Israeli
met.
occupation army said Hamas was behind a combined attack, including the
with
firing
honor,
of rockets and terrorist infiltrations into Israeli territory from the Gaza Strip. Rockets streamed across the sky repeatedly after the first launches from multiple locations across Gaza. The armed wing of Palestinian group Hamas said it was behind the fire, claiming its militants had launched more than 5,000 rockets. We decided to put an end to all the crimes of the occupation. Their time for rampaging without being held accountable is over. We announced Operation Al-Aqsa Flood, and we fired, in the first strike of 20 minutes, more than 5,000 rockets. Israeli occupation army said Hamas was behind a combined attack. The office of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, whose father helped blow up the King David Hotel with Irgun terrorists, said the premier will shortly convene security chiefs over the violence. Israel has imposed a crippling blockade on Gaza since 2007, after Hamas took power. Palestinian militants in Israel have fought several
Not looking good.
since then. The latest
looking
fire
good.
follows a period of heightened tensions in September when
No,
Israel
no,
closed
no,
the
no, no.
workers for 2 weeks. The shutdown of the crossing came as Palestinian protests rocked the heavily militarized border. Protesters had resorted to throwing rocks at Israeli troops who responded
They parried
with
me.
bullets.
How the fuck you don't pair me as a bear?
Slammed the border closures as collective punishment against thousands of Palestinian workers who have far greater
Oh, in
earning
retrospect,
potential
it ran
in
to
Israel
them.
than in Gaza, where unemployment is rife.
Should test that.
Vast majority of fatalities have occurred in the West Bank, which has been occupied by Israel since the 1967 Arab-Israeli conflict. There's been a rise in occupation army raids, Palestinian attacks targeting Israelis, and Israeli settler violence against Palestinians and their property. Several far-right Israeli ministers live in settlements in the occupied West Bank, which are deemed illegal under international law. Nobody cares about that. This, of course, as we have to often remind you on New Orleans, is a developing bunch of stories, and we can only give you what we know as of right now, October 11th, 2023, 6:12 p.m. Mountain Time. There is no shortage of cheers and jeers on this episode. Anti-war, independent RFKJ supports Zionist right to self-defense. You got to read this tweet from RFK Jr., and it's real interesting, James. It seems like his support on the left is gone over his weird vaccine stance. His support on the right is gone over now his weird warmonger stance. It's kind of parallel, bizarro cloud worlds. Meanwhile, Mark Crispin Miller says this surprise attack on Israel seems just as sketchy as the wildfires in Lahaina. Decensored.news covers the blackout after Hamas issues that statement about their motives for the attack on Israel, which doesn't get a lot of coverage. Israel orders a complete siege on Gaza Strip, cuts off electricity, food, fuel, and water for the human animals. That coming from a man, Chris, at informationliberation.com. And hundreds of thousands more Israelis okay to carry guns under new rules. That from timesofisrael.com. And perhaps the most galling one, James. U.S. has enough weapons for Israel, Ukraine, and more, says the Pentagon. Of course, this whole thing, every bit of it all stinks to high heaven. Zionist terrorist false flag events, amplified by feds and talking heads. Nepo baby Jamie Lee Curtis shared a sad photo saying, "Terror from the skies," until she realized she was sharing a photo of Israelis bombing Palestinians. Post deleted. I think the thing I might trust most, frighteningly now, James, is what the CIA, Amazon, Washington Post listening device said back on February 3rd of 2023. Alexa says World War III will start on November 23rd when Russia attacks Germany. And I will say again, for the 1,000th time, for people who might not know anything about eschatology or the Bible or end times or Revelations or Armageddon, when you hear that the Dome of the Rock, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, when you hear that the Dome of the Rock has been blown up, as far as Armageddon pimps believe, that will be World War III. Period. You've heard me say that dozens of times over these dozen or so years. That is in, I believe, James, it's in one of the books they didn't remove from the Bible. James.
All right, James, let me underline what you said there. That's incredibly important for people to understand. By the time you are hearing this, this will already be 24 hours old, what we are talking about right now. So whatever breaking news headlines are in the news at the time you're watching this, we don't know about yet. So we can't cover the up to the second breaking news. But what we can do is zoom out a little and give the perspective on this story. And you're exactly right to say that this stinks to high heaven. There are so many things that are coming out right now that certainly don't add up in any way that makes logical sense. So I think again, if people are interested, I will have a lot more to say about this. I believe I'm scheduled to be talking to Ryan Christian on the LastAmericanVagabond.com in the coming days. So stay tuned for that, and please do watch the coverage that Ryan Christian is doing right now. He's doing hours-long streams every single day on this subject, and all the up to the second breaking news. But I think it's important to put this in the context because, again, there's all sorts of craziness going on right now, and I would say do not believe anything you are hearing, certainly not at face value, coming out of this war zone right now. Never believe anything you're hearing coming out of a war zone, but especially this one. One case in point that everyone's seen by now.
Really knows how.
The Gray Zone, for example, has this story up. The source of the dubious beheaded babies claim is, drumroll please, settler leader who incited riots to wipe out Palestinian village. And this is the source that was unquestioningly parroted by the, I believe, I-24 reporter, and then got picked up by Netanyahu, etc., etc. So this is how this kind of atrocity propaganda and propaganda generally starts to spread very quickly. But what this potentially is about, and what you're gesturing to right there, is the potential for the broader conflict. And we all know what broader conflict means when we start talking about end times apocalypticism in the Holy Land, etc., right? So for some perspective on that and what it could mean, I'll direct people to Covert Action Magazine, which had a post up about widening the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, yellow journalism stoking potential war on Iran, talking about that WSJ article that came out right in the wake of this. Oh, it was Iran. We've got inside sources that are telling us Iran was helping to plot this, which was then further amplified by Israeli Foreign Minister Eli Cohen, who talked about Hamas, and this is Hamas, who is a proxy of Iran. So, quoting that, it looks, again, at the point at which we're recording this, that maybe they're walking that back a little bit and they're not going to push that. At any rate, the New York Times apparently has a new post up via antiwar.com. U.S. intelligence shows Iranian leaders were surprised by Hamas. So maybe they're not going to pull that trigger yet, but maybe they are. The latest up from the official Iranian website, Khamenei.ir, with a post about Supreme Leader Imam Khomeini, and his statement on this, basically, obviously saying this is a natural result of Zionist oppression of the Palestinians, etc., etc. So he's not walking back anything like, we condemn violence on all sides or anything like that. It certainly plays into the potential for the spreading of this. And I think that's what we have to definitely be concerned about, because, hey, whatever your position on everything that's happening, the potential for this to incredibly expand very quickly on a knife edge, on a dime, is there. And I don't know where this is going, and it depends on how much they press that lever. But as the second ever episode of Corbett Report podcast was, World War III starts in Iran. Maybe it starts in Germany, according to Alexa. But at any rate, we're talking about the potential widening of this conflict to an unprecedented level. So I think everyone needs to have their eyes on this story right now.
And as you discussed, they sort of seed the propaganda with these emotional stories. It's like I said, incubator babies 2023. War propaganda. Again, everyone's all...
My only question is this Incubator Babies 2.0 or Babies on Bayonets 2.0? Why not both?
Why not both, indeed? It took Billboard magazine a couple of days, but once they started, man, the articles started to crank out all the scary articles from, yes, Billboard magazine. Again, you'll kind of know the fix is in when every media outlet immediately has to jump on board. Special graphics at the bottom, the breathless reporting. Billboard magazine started to crank out the articles. Again, for a decade to media monitoring listeners.
No.
When they really started to literally attack music. Manchester, Pulse, the Bataclan, Bill Clinton and Warren Buffett going to see Chance the Rapper shows. I've been saying all your concerts are belong
Wow, I've got to see one.
Israeli rave massacre survivors detail their escape as scores remain missing. This from Billboard, run through the archive link. And of course, everything we say is included in your show notes. As the Palestinian group, this is coming from Billboard magazine. As the Palestinian group Hamas continues to attack Israel and the country retaliates by bombing Gaza, survivors of a terrorist attack at the Parallelo Universo Supernova Sukkot Gathering Electronic Music Festival near the Gaza border are continuing what has become a grim search for hundreds of people who are still missing. So far, the Israeli search and rescue organization Zaka has reported that it found 260 dead bodies at the festival in Leim, Israel. An unknown number of attendees have been abducted by Hamas terrorists. At least 150 Israelis were abducted on Saturday, October 7th, according to the New York Times, and some of them were taken from the rave. On Tuesday morning, October 10th, President Biden referenced the massacre during remarks on the Israeli-Hamas conflict, naming, quote, young people massacred while attending a music festival to celebrate peace among the violent incidents of the last few days. As of Sunday evening, 600 to 700 festival goers were believed to be missing in the immediate aftermath of the attack, according to artist manager Raz Gaster, who was at the event and represents several acts on the lineup. The exact number of the remaining still missing has not been verified, although two sources in Israel put this number at approximately 150, accounting for bodies that have since been recovered and identified, as well as survivors who have been identified. Though another source on the ground says it's still hard to tell how many remain missing. The Israeli offshoot of the long-standing Brazilian festival brand Parallelo Universo Supernova Sukkot Gathering was named in honor of the Jewish Sukkot holiday and hosted approximately 3,000 attendees at a rural site with 2 stages. You know, I think there are hundreds, possibly 1,000 kids still missing in Hawaii, but nobody cares about that story anymore. Interesting thread of threads on the artist formerly known as Twitter. Tribe of Nova and Nova Productions are interesting, and I've not had nearly any amount of time to dive through, again, what is a thread of threads on Twitter. The too long didn't read, if I may be so crazy as to speculate. It looks like a bunch of IDF and Mossad spooks acting like cool rave kids. The dancing Israelis are now possibly the raving Israelis. In other musical massacres being covered by Billboard, Bruno Mars instructed to evacuate Israel amid terrorist attacks, leaving behind banned gear. On Saturday, Bruno Mars, born Peter Gene Hernandez, his birthday this last Sunday, October 8th. Set to become the third American artist ever to perform 2 sold-out concerts at the 70,000 capacity Hayarkon Park in Tel Aviv, Israel, following Illuminati High Priestess Madonna in 2009 and MJ 30 years ago in 93. Bruno Mars played his first show there last Wednesday with 2 Tel Aviv acts opening, nearly 4 hours in total. Both shows were promoted by Bluestone Group, which is owned by Live Nation Israel. Mars' concert cancellation represents a symbolic setback for Israel's touring business. For more than a decade, artists announcing plans to perform in the country were faced with harsh public criticism from activists and artists.
Pink
Roger
and
Waters
Sparkle.
and Brian Eno, who
Oh,
urged
shit, I don't know
musicians to
what
boycott
counts
the
as
country over what they describe as unjust treatment of Palestinians.
Hmm.
In 2018, Lana Del Rey was booked to headline the Meteor Music Festival when Roger Waters urged her to reconsider. Her trip fell apart due to scheduling issues, ultimately. Roger Waters, a proponent of the BDS movement, boycott, divestment, and sanctions, Palestinian-led campaign to isolate Israel, also targeted Radiohead, Bon Jovi, J-Lo, and all of those unsuccessfully. Nick Cave, of course, on that list as well. New generation promoters like Tel Aviv-based Bluestone Group, which Live Nation bought in 2017 as a joint venture of several investors, including Madonna's old label, Maverick's Guy Oseary, work to increase the potential gross artists can make playing Israel, while also helping them to navigate the anti-Israel backlash. In 2023, the country hosted a number of top-tier Western acts, including Imagine
No, I'm
Dragons,
Sarah.
Tiesto, Disney Aguilera, The Black Keys, and Ground.
All right, Sarah, what are you trying to tell me, Sarah?
Roses. Ballless, soulless,
I just don't trust nobody,
spiritless,
so
corporate little B words,
I wait for you to be like, no,
backs,
I
pushing
just
sellout
want to, like, you know,
every one of
be
them,
my
as I've said
Discord
for the
and
last
sell you
2+
some bullshit.
years. F your bands and F your concerts. James, this is now actually
Listen.
the longest time I've never been to a concert in my life. 2+ years and counting. I can see why now.
I would say probably a
knows,
good
Steph?
choice on there, because if you are looking for
Apparently.
a convenient venue for your ritualistic occultic murder sacrifice, or
Jesus
a kill
Christ.
box, a convenient high-profile media kill box for a terrorist false flight event, where better to go than to a concert?
So I'm listening to
We've
some
seen many
conspiracy,
examples of that over the years, and,
chat.
I'm
Oh,
reminded
damn,
of
I
the
fucked that
Eagles
guy
of Death
up.
concert in Paris,
Hell yeah.
November 2015. Remember that one? Etc. Etc. There's so many aspects to this, but one of the aspects that comes to mind is, yet again, what exactly was the military strategic objective of this massive invasion
smash.
force that swept in on their paragliders? Question mark. Again, there's so much that doesn't add up with this story, but again, the only possible response that you would expect from some military strategy like this is exactly what we are about to see, which seems like it's going to be the ground force invasion, full-on ethnic cleansing of 2 million people in Gaza. I don't know what else you would be expecting. So one would expect, if that was going to be your strategy, the only possible follow-up to that is escalation.
Oops, wrong button.
Yes, if it was going to be some sort of broader regional war and you were going to bring in Iran and what have you, maybe that makes sense. But from any other military strategy,
I called it.
absolutely no sense. But then again, these are all things that, as I say, I'm going to be covering with Ryan Christian on The Last American Vagabond.
Yeah, dude.
But, yeah,
No.
interesting.
No, thank you.
I'd
This
be
is a hobby.
interested in your take on what the
Nobody watches this shit.
significance
It's
of
all
this festival
good.
is per se in terms of the larger story.
I think in situations like these, they need
Nah, I'm good, dog.
sympathy. And one of the easiest ways with the largest amount of people.
I've noticed all
is
the
to target
bots that
some
do this
kind of
pretend to be
concert,
women.
Some kind of large gathering.
Well, yeah,
some
so
kind of
I'm
event.
just a young girl trying to, you know, make some
Las
money.
Vegas. Again, we just recently had
Why is it every
that.
some person's a
Mention
girl?
That one as being another
Yeah,
concept
nah.
attack. I mean, if I were a crazy conspiracy theorist, I would say they have to come after media because that's the only thing kids of my generation and younger care about or pay attention to. I don't really care about politics, but if we can scare the crap out of you about going to a concert, oh man, I thought I was going to get the super viral killer thing. Now I might just get shot. Well, that's why they go after it. And it feels like what this Gladio 3.0, 5.0. They need these sorts of events. And again, this is from their own words and their own writings. We do these events to get the outcry from the public who will then say, you've got to do something. What were we talking about last week? More regulation, please. Seems like another classic setup. And again, this is something like Crispin Hill was saying. This is another situation to keep
you are
screwed straight.
It's okay though.
Perfect example.
See, Discord thing, I told you.
So-called alternative.
Fucking told you.
Go nuts,
Fucking bot bullshit.
A bunch of accusations and
I feel like I'm talking to a guy from India.
shake out, James. But for our
Like, here's my script,
story
and I say a
on
couple
this
things in between the
Zio
script.
War dedicated episode 532. 23
How the fuck are you dodging?
user data targeting Ashkenazi Jews leaked online. You wondered what the third and final story would be for this. Hackers have compiled a giant apparent list of people with Ashkenazi Jewish ancestry after taking that information from genetic testing service 23andMe, which is now being shared on the internet. A database that has been shared on dark web forums and viewed by Comcast NBC News has a list of 999,999 people who allegedly have used the service. It includes their first and last name, sex, and 23andMe's evaluation of where their ancestors came from. The database is titled Ashkenazi DNA Data of Celebrities, but most of the people on it aren't famous, and it appears to have been sorted to only include people with Ashkenazi heritage. NBC News was able to verify 2 23andMe users in the breach as being authentic. They talked to 2 people and said, yep, that's me, that's my name, that's my ID. Crazy. This could be used by Nazis, one person who
Jesus
appears in the
Christ.
database said, hilariously without a shred of irony. A popular option available to the company's 14 million users called DNA Relatives allows any account to search for others who may be even a distant genetic match. A single account can see the accounts of thousands of others. 23andMe now believes that the hackers simply recycled some users' passwords, it isn't clear how many, to scrape the list of people it had labeled as having Ashkenazi heritage. James, I don't know if you know people that have done this, but I've heard from some... It said we're Jewish. That's weird. Up to 40% of at-home genetic test results may be false positives. April 17th, 2018. I will include the research that they are reporting on. False positive results released by direct-to-consumer genetic tests highlight the importance of clinical confirmation testing
that guy did not
for
make it.
appropriate patient care. Meanwhile, James, in the, what was it called? Project for a New American Century, just a little bit, a few pages after they call for a new Pearl Harbor, they write, quote, advanced forms of biological warfare that can target specific genotypes may transform biological warfare from the realm of terror to a politically useful tool. Their project for a new world century is off to the races, man.
Yeah, exactly right. Thank you for bringing up that reference. We should bring it up every time
What
it's
can I do
mentioned.
for
Yes,
you?
race.
No, motherfucker. No means no.
Tool says the Project for a New American Century. And who was actually working on that in the 80s? Oh, yeah, South Africa. And under the tutelage of whom? Oh, that's right, people like David Kelly and others in the UK version, Porton Down version of that that particular realm of research. And who was interested in acquiring that from South Africa? Oh, that's right, Israel. So there you go. There's kind of the circularity on that. And then, yes, this information could be used by Nazis, who, of course, were very interested and very salivating over the prospect of genetic databases. Yay, eugenics. But who else was interested in eugenics? Oh, how about the originators of eugenics, i.e. the British gentleman scientist class there in the late 19th century, and then, of course, transported over to the U.S. and funded into existence by wealthy American billionaire benefactors like the Rockefellers, etc. And yeah, they were the ones who were funding the Kaiser Wilhelm Institutes in Germany. So anyway, that's an interesting circularity. And then, yeah, you would think, yeah, of course, this could be used by Nazis or other eugenics-obsessed crazies out there. Yes, it certainly could. But wouldn't you think that the people who supposedly you would, at least they tell us, they're very concerned about, you know, the prospect of being cattle tagged and marked and databased in these IBM Hollerith machines, etc. Well, shouldn't you be concerned then about the very existence of genetic databases at all? Why is this security breach the first time that it is crossing your mind that maybe we don't want to be submitting our genetics to some company to have that information out there to be used willy-nilly by eugenicists of various stripes, including Nazis, right? Yeah, there's so much circularity to this story, it almost hurts. But I think it just goes to show. Anyway, I would assume most of our audience are not sending their genetics into some company to get them tested. 23andMe, who founded that, and who's she the sister of, and how does that work? Or the wife of who again? Yeah, once you start looking into it, it's crazier and crazier, and I should probably do a deep dive on this story in particular. But yeah, anyway, wake up call for any normie who stumbled into this podcast somehow. Yeah, don't send your genetics off to some company to, oh, don't worry, they'll keep it safe for me. No, it can and will be used against you.
And they don't even need a court of so-called law to be having it used against you. NewWorldNextWeek.com has all the ways you can support both of our works. T-shirts, hats. I told you the USB bundles would be sold out soon. I told you my music compilations are the best radio.
All right, we are live with Senor James Corbett. We've been having technical issues. He's been having technical issues on his recent appearance with Ryan on Last American Vagabond. So
Hey there.
Klaus does not want James to get the word out. And again, for people who've been living under a rock, we're talking to James Corbett, his
help
second
you?
appearance, I think, on TNT, award-winning journalist, and find all his stuff at CorbettReport.com. How you doing, James?
I'm doing pretty good, Hervoy. How are you doing?
As good as things can be, as World War III is
Have a good
underway.
one.
And, you know, I've been, of course, a lot of us follow your material, and it's interesting that lately you've been covering a lot of topics on my mind. You know, the information war, the Great Travel Reset, Israel, Palestine. And just real quick, you know, again, people should go watch your stuff, and I don't want to get too much into it, but I thought we'd start with your latest, which was A Gentleman's Guide to Trolls, Bots, Sea Lions, Forum Spies, and Other Pests. And I learned what a sea lion was thanks to you. And I think this is important because and it's relevant for listeners as well, because they are themselves participating in, you know, various Telegram or Twitter chats or comment sections of Odyssey or BitChute. And I did hear you recently talk about how the comment section in BitChute turns people off. And I noticed BitChute changed something. They don't show the comments anymore. You have to actually click a button now on BitChute
Hello.
for them to show the comments. So maybe they've been listening to you, but you know, and last week I got into trouble with Elliot Higgins and Bellingcat. You know, I mistakenly posted some fake news, and they tried to shame me. And I think, you know, one of the best tactics for
Safe
me was
travels.
show that they can't shame me. I just retweeted them and said, hey, look, I'm going to be famous. And they just kind of shut up. They cease and desisted because, you know, their tactics don't work. But just your thoughts on, you know, your latest, you know, troll expose and how the information war is escalating.
Yeah. It's an important topic, and one that I think doesn't get enough conscious attention. It's all unconscious and subconscious, which is part of the problem, I think, here. But, I mean, there's a difference between a troll or a forum spy or a pest of some sort and someone who is pointing out that, hey, what you have just said is factually wrong. That is incorrect. That is fake news. And hopefully, in that case, when that is the case, you can go, my bad, that is wrong, I retract it. You know, everybody, please know that was incorrect information. That's the way it's supposed to work, right? That's generally not how it works online. And as anyone who's ever posted anything online or attempted to engage in a conversation online knows, it is very quickly it devolves into flame wars and ad hominems and what have you. And what I was trying to do in that Solutions Watch episode in particular was direct people's attention to a post that, as I say, I believe has been floating around on the internet in various forms for decades now. But I was looking at specifically a version of it from 2012, I think was posted up on cryptome.org, about this forum, Gentle Person's Guide to Forum Spies or something along those lines. And just looking at some of the common tactics that are used to derail conversation. And I think it is important for people to keep that in mind, because everyone thinks, whatever, it's just the comments, who cares, it's just having fun. But I think people are affected much, much more than they would ever themselves suspect themselves to be by the types of conversations that happen online, because as human beings, we tend to believe we are engaged in an actual human conversation with a real, earnest other human being, and we're having some sort of debate, and it'll be an argument, and we'll have the facts on this side and facts on that side. But, well, sometimes that may be the case, but sometimes that is not the case. And we know that the 77th Brigade of the UK PsyOps warriors online, and the US and Israel and pretty much every government on the planet at this point has dedicated teams of PsyOps warriors online, literally devoted to derailing conversation in various ways, debunking information that goes against the official government line, etc. So at the very, very, very least, we should always have in the back of our mind, who are we debating with, engaging with? And it gets even worse now in this era of chatbots and, well, large language models that can adequately sort of imitate human speech. Well, now it's getting harder and harder and harder and harder to tell who you're actually talking to online. And I want people to keep that in mind, because unfortunately, as I say, people's not just the way they think, but then how they act in the world is influenced by all of these conversations you are engaged in online. And once you start to identify some of the tactics that are used to derail people, get them off track, get them thinking about other things, get them divided, once you start to identify that, I think you have a chance of actually overcoming it. But you have to identify it first.
Yeah, and people in various groups or chats, as you mentioned, the tactic is identifying it, calling it out, and even ignoring it, and that completely, I think, angers those 77th Brigade people. And
don't feed the trolls is one of the oldest statements online, right? And it's absolutely true. It's funny how often people can get baited so easily into some sort of conversation just by the big red meat they'll throw out with some provocative statement, and everyone jumps on that statement and starts debating it back and forth. And one of the tactics that I don't think I addressed specifically in that Solutions Watch episode, but I've seen many times before, is that someone will say something that is just totally not true, and everyone will respond to that as if it is true. So I've seen many, many times, James says blah, 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 but actually, da-da-da-da. And actually, I never said blah, blah, blah. That was something that someone just totally made up, but everyone responds as if, okay, James said this thing, and now let's all talk about that thing. No, I didn't say that. That's totally made up, but everyone will respond to it. So again, the tactics are very effective because they push people's buttons in ways that most people don't even understand they have buttons.
Yeah, and so people have to get smarter and just ignore and call them out, and that right there defeats the situation. Real quick, James, we got to jump to our headlines. We continue our conversation with James Corbett of CorbettReport.com. If you haven't already, subscribe to his email list, his Substack, become a member, and help keep him doing the work that he's doing. And before me continuing on, James, some of the other topics that I'm interested in, of course, is what you've been covering, the Great Travel Reset. I've been worried about not being able to travel anymore to see friends and family and my other homelands in the near future. And then, of course, Israel, Palestine. But, whether it's those topics, or is there any other topic that's burning on your mind or that you're preparing to cover in the near future?
There's no lack of things to talk about. And I just had an email recently from someone who said, I was glad to see the passion that you had in your recent podcast on the Great Travel Reset, because there's so many things going on right now. It's hard to understand what the priority should be. And unfortunately, that's right. I mean, World War III seems like a pretty big deal, right? So we should probably be concentrating on that. But then again, I mean, the Great Travel Reset, etc., are kind of things that are even on top of that World War kind of agenda, so that it's happening simultaneously all across the globe in an almost a coordinated fashion between different nation states. So maybe we should be concentrating on that. Maybe we should be concentrating over here. So anyway, I got tons of things on my plate. I'm happy to talk about anything you're interested in.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we've talked in the past on my podcast on TNT and me on your report, and since 2020, I was back then, I've been talking to Patrick Wood, Edwin Black, all these people, Aaron Hariati and others, and it comes down to whatever, I think you've called it the digital gulag, I call it the algorithm ghetto, this digital control grid, and every day, I'm reading biometric update for the news segment next hour. You got Amazon Web Service working with India's government to repurpose the COVID-19 portal for digital health IDs that are going to track, humans from cradle to grave. Bill Gates is out there in Kenya now. Where is this now? They're bringing out these kiosks where you just now pay, you just scan, no more cash, right? Just QR codes or NFC cards or facial recognition. And I think this is the key. This, for me, even trumps World War III, because it's going to be in every nation. World War III is going out there. It's going on out there in Europe, and the other fronts that are opening up in the Middle East. You can escape to Latin America, maybe, or parts of Asia. To escape World War III, but you can't escape the algorithm ghetto. So, your further thoughts on Great Travel Reset and all this, digital IDs and all this?
Yeah, it's such an extremely important topic, because as I hoped I was able to articulate in that recent podcast episode, this isn't just about this one particular issue. It's one of those things that connects into everything that is coming, the whole digital gulag system. And the idea of a vaccine passport or a carbon passport or whatever they're going to frame it as is just one way into this coming complete prison system, where you will have your digital ID tied to your central bank digital currency, tied to your social credit score, and you will be allowed and permitted out of your home or not on the whims of some technocrat flipping a switch somewhere. And the worst part, actually for me, the worst part about all of this is not even, okay, yes, of course the technocrats are going to technocrat. They're going to try to do this. That's not even surprising to me at this point. What is truly gobstopping to me is the people out there who do not understand the significance of this, including some of the, potentially forum spies and trolls and bots and other commenters out there. But I've seen some of the feedback on the Great Travel Reset. Oh, who cares about middle-class travel anyway? As if okay, sorry for my ridiculous bourgeois middle-class concern about being able to travel back to Canada to see my friends and family again. Sorry to have that kind of, no, you're right. I shouldn't have the right to do that. Government should come in and dictate that to me. So, first of all, a big F you to anyone who would come in between me and my family. But secondarily, even beyond that, it's not even about that. It's not even about jet setting and international travel. It's about your ability to travel anywhere, including outside of your own home. Do people already forget just a few years ago the lockdowns that were happening? Are you fine with that? Are you happy? Because that is the Great Travel Reset. That's what we are talking about. And as seemingly simply as they were able to do that a few years ago, it will be even more simple in the coming dystopian nightmare digital gulag prison future, where we are all essentially prisoners by default and only allowed out of our homes by the flick of a switch of a technocrat whim. That is the Great Travel Reset. So people who don't understand this, it's just you and your middle-class travel concerns, that to me is the most worrying part of all of this.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head, and I'm responding to emails daily, and I was talking to someone, I forget somewhere, and repeating the experience I had here in Mexico, where what you're talking about is internal Soviet passports in every nation. So you won't be able to go state to state. That was the case in Canada. They floated these ideas here in Mexico. I'm in the state of Jalisco, which is called the free and sovereign state, and I mock that. I laugh. I'm like, are you free and sovereign? And the governor, Enrique Alfaro, who I called Enrique Adolfo Alfaro, alluding to Adolf Hitler. He floated the ideas of not being able to enter or exit the state of Jalisco in Mexico without a COVID passport. So that's exactly what you're saying. So people have to get it through their heads. If this system is put into place, you won't be able to leave your state, potentially even your city or municipality.
Your 15-minute city, as it could be. And then, as I say, just a few years ago, it was literally you had to have permission to leave your house in France, in Australia, in various places. They really literally did that. Lockdown. Unless you have a permission slip from the government, you cannot travel anywhere and do anything. And that is the level of granular detail that will be possible in this system, where literally your entire life now is on your little Fonda slave device. And if you don't have that carried around, tracking you at all times, then you're not allowed into the public space. And that is what it's about. It's not even about crossing a provincial border or a state border. It's about literally going and accessing any public space. As I played the clip in the Great Travel Reset about the Clear Health Pass. Yeah, okay, screening 1.0 was at the airports, but 2.0 is going to be, stadiums or cinemas or businesses, restaurants. If you want to go anywhere, you'll have to check in with your little slave device. That is what this is about.
And I will want to get on to Israel and Palestine, but we can talk solutions now. And I'm a big fan of Aaron Day, who I've had on the program, and he's saying our time it's really running out. The clock is winding down. Today you're reading MasterCard, and I forget who else are working to complete the interoperability with CBDCs based on the Ethereum whatever platform, and so they're steamrolling ahead. It seems like the biggest solutions is just to boycott, to divest, to decentralize, start using Linux. I've got a de-Googled phone, buy from, local farmers, just as much as we can. And you mentioned this in your recent roundtable with Meryl Nass, who I've had on the show, and James Roguski, who I just spoke to yesterday, that you were a little bit of cyanide pill there, as I call it, as Legal Man calls it. But if enough people don't wake up, we're screwed. We need a certain critical mass. And so, your thoughts on the way forward.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying and the spirit behind it, because for those people who think there is some sort of political solution to this, and you're going to cast the right vote in your once every 4 year slave suggestion box, and that will solve everything, good luck to you. And I mean that genuinely. I hope you are able to vote your savior into power and all of this will be derailed. But I don't think that's going to happen. And I'm not holding my breath waiting for that to happen. Again, I'm not stopping anyone from doing anything that they think is going to work. But I just, good luck to you. No, this isn't. This is the logic of the technocratic system as it is developed. Of course, they are going to push this digital technology. And of course, it's just the natural evolution. Everyone carries around their slave device. So, of course, they're going to put your entire digital identity and everything on it. And that's just the way this is going. Get with the times, man. So I think truly, it's certainly, we're not going to derail this through some sort of political legislative process. The only thing that will actually affect this is mass non-compliance, certainly. But beyond that, as I always stress, and as it always comes back to with my Solutions Watch and the things that I'm stressing, yeah, of course, we have to not comply with the system, but we also have to be building up the alternative at the same time. Because it's great just to say, okay, so, just don't have a driver's license, don't have a passport, don't leave your home, and that'll show them. Well, no, not really. No, we have to build up the communities where we will all agree to participate and transact with each other in non-digital ways, etc., and don't need the QR codes and the ID passes and all of that. And that's unless we have that infrastructure in place now, how on earth are we going to set it up, a few years down the road when all of this is already in place and already functioning? It has to be done now. And of course, you're just going to get the people who say, well, if you do that, they're just going to come after you. You think they're just going to let you trade with each other? Well, okay, great. So I guess the answer really literally is just to lay down and die.
For the Alliance.
All right, well, if that's your solution, good luck to you. But that ain't my solution. I'm going to keep pressing this. We have to create the alternative communities that will be the answer.
Some people talk about all of this is going to collapse. The Great Reset project is going to collapse. And, you know, we have to walk a fine line because, you know, people have pointed this out. We don't want to project too much power, you know, that the World Economic Forum doesn't have, Schwab, and then do the work for them. Right? We don't want to do that. But then there's the other extreme, like, oh, it's going to collapse, like you kind of alluded to. We don't have to worry about it. And then maybe at some point, I think eventually it will collapse. But, you know, that could be, we could be living in the gulag for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. I don't want to.
Exactly.
I don't
and
want
even then, even when it collapses, depending on the way that it collapses, it could collapse on us. You know, I mean, if it's great if the system all collapses and it doesn't work, but then, okay, so now we don't have those alternative communities in place because you were going poo-poo, who cares? So now we're all just left scrambling to try to build all of that from scratch, and good luck to you. So again, it's like the people who try to poo-poo the preppers. Oh, stupid preppers trying to prepare for emergencies. Oh, how stupid. Well, okay, so the worst case scenario, the emergency doesn't come, but you still have, you know, the edible foods and supplies and everything in case, you know, anything happens, an earthquake or whatever, you're still prepared. So that's a win, no matter what. In the same way, building up the alternative communities and infrastructures and knowing people in your local area that you can trade with and having redundancies and backups and offline systems for trading. What is the harm in that? Why not be doing that? There is no reason why people should not be actively engaged in trying to build that up right now, regardless of whether or not this all just magically collapses on itself. And I say, I agree. I think people put too much power in the they, them, those that control everything, and it's all masterminded by Klaus Schwab. He's a clown. He is nothing. But it's as I say, it's the logic of the system. Even if you got rid of every single person in the World Economic Forum and Bilderberg and Trilaterals and all of these people overnight, the system would continue to function in the way the system is going to function. It's going to process us all as these digital entities in the digital grid, because that is the technocratic mindset that the public has largely not just been inculcated with, but now genuinely believes themselves. And it's the
Doesn't lose my character.
So until we change that logic, it's not going to change. And it's not about those people. It's about the system. So anyway, that's my thoughts.
And, you know, COVID 1994 already proved that the preppers were right. I mean, I've still got some canned food from 2020.
Oh,
As
shit.
soon as I came from Kazakhstan back to Mexico in 2020, I went to the supermarket and bought, like, filled up the cart with canned goods and stuff. But, you know, even as you say, even if it doesn't happen now, historically, I'm a former history major, professor, teacher, you know, every few generations we have the 100-year storm. So at least, you know, if you have a
Are you fucking
bunker or
serious? I just
something
literally
like
killed
that,
you.
your kids will be ready, right, for the 100-year storm when it hits. And then maybe to get again to World War III, I think I was listening to New World next week, or was it where you mentioned your second podcast ever? You were talking about World War III in Iran, and then on my podcast a year or two ago, we were discussing this, and that you know, I think, and that, you know, they can take us to war. That fulfills a lot of their purposes. But James, it really does seem like this is it, you know, with what Israel has done and Palestine. And then you're reading today from Ayatollah Khamenei, the Iranian foreign minister, what they're talking about. Like the Muslim world is beginning to, there feels like there's momentum.
I already killed that. Why do I have to kill him again?
Towards events. So, and you know, I just also want to mention, we had this rocket attack on the hospital. And I'm not jumping to conclusions because you've got Netanyahu IDF saying it was the Palestinians or Hamas or some other group, and then you've got them saying it was Israel.
Why does he keep
and
respawning?
IDF, and I'm here just like, really, I don't want to jump to conclusions. You know, it's the fog of war. I have no idea what's going on, but just, you know, your take on what's everything that's going on.
There is so much to discuss, so I guess it depends on which aspect you want to talk about. But let's forestall and head off the brainiacs out there who will seek to derail this conversation by redefining the terms and saying, well, World War III is already going on, and it's a war of every government against its own citizens. Yes, you're right, and you believe that because I've said it many, many, many times, and I've pointed this out, perhaps most notably in a questions report that I did a few years ago now on how will World War III be fought, in which I took that question and talked a little bit about the technologies of warfare, but then talked a little bit more about, well, actually, we are in World War III. It's a 5th-gen war. of essentially nation states against their own citizens, and it's not even about nation states per se. It's about control structures and the technocratic system. So anyway, yeah, I've said that before. Now, talking about World War III in its geopolitical context and in its traditionally understood meaning, there was a Second World War that we all understand that took place 1939 and 94, blah blah blah, and there will be a Third World War if things continue along this path, and we already see the outlines of that war. This is one of those things where I believe it's a famous Hemingway quote, and I'm really going to have to commit this to memory because I reference it and I never remember it, but it's something a character in the story asked essentially how they went bankrupt. And they said, well, very gradually and then all at once, or something like that. Yeah, we see it coming. We know exactly what's happening, and we can see it years off in the distance, and then it happens. And who knows what assassination of what Archduke, is the actual trigger event that triggers it. But it wasn't the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand that really was the real trigger and impetus for World War I. It was just the event which set those particular pieces into play. Similarly, World War III, we already understand what is happening in them. As you cover extensively, and you have conversations about this all the time, the multipolar, it's the Atlanticists versus the Eurasianists, and it's the NATO bloc versus the BRICS, and all of this. We know the outlines of what is already developing right now, so it will not be surprising when this eventuates into warfare. The only thing is, well, where and in which particular context? Will it be Ukraine and Russia? Will it be Israel and the Palestinians? Will it be Taiwan and China? There's a million different, and who knows? It could be like with World War I. It could be some other part of the globe entirely that no one was expecting and no one was thinking about. But wherever it kicks off, we already know what this is going to look like. The one thing we don't really know is the technology of warfare that will be employed in this. I believe Trump said recently, World War III is closer than ever, and it will involve technologies you can't dream of, or imagine that in a Trump voice. I don't think I do a good Trump impression, but anyway, and I think he's probably right about that. Again, as I've stressed many times, you think you know what warfare is. Well, we haven't seen true global battlefield warfare on that scale for 75, 80 years, whatever it's been now. So I think people will have to reconceptualize what war looks like and what war is. Anyway, all of that to say, the events obviously taking place in Israel and occupied Palestine right now, incredibly concerning, because not only obviously the genuine and real humanitarian concern for people who are potentially going to be ethnically genocided in coming days, potentially, but also, of course, the broader implications of this and the potential for regional war that would escalate quite quickly. And of course, now we have the whole Iran, Hezbollah, the day of action and what have you that Iran is apparently calling for, and the U.S. Threatening Iran now, and the strike aircraft strike groups being taken to the region. Just incredibly concerning. Of course, all of this, as I have pointed out in some of my recent coverage, I hope people will check it out. All of this on the back of this incredibly, not just suspicious, not just unlikely, but literally impossible event of not just one breach of this border, but 15 simultaneous breaches, thousands of people coming across, color-coded, coordinated map strike plans of exactly where to go to get the Israeli intelligence hubs. They're dragging IDF soldiers out in their pajamas, completely caught off guard, running around for hours and hours, killing people en masse, taking prisoners and hostages, and just, who knows? Oh, wow, it was just such a big surprise. Who could have imagined it? Top to bottom, total garbage. And even Israelis are now starting to talk about this. I hope people will check out Efrat Fenigson. Recently talked to one of the Weinsteins, Brett, Eric, I don't know.
Brett,
I think it was Brett.
Right,
yeah.
Brett.
On his podcast, talking about it's impossible. This could not have happened this way. And there's a lot of details there for people who want it. But long story short, I think something has been manipulated here, and I don't know what the actual end game of this was, because we are now, a week plus or what? I can't even remember how long it's been. We are several days into this, and they still haven't done this ground invasion that they've been talking about and talking about and talking. So I don't know what's going to eventuate from this and what particularly the play was, but we do already see some of the immediate effects of this, which of course, as always, is to rally people around the flag. And Netanyahu and all of the protests and IDF reservists and others were threatening to walk out, and all of this, well, all of that immediately solved, as usual, rallying people around the flag with this spectacularly unlikely Israeli 9/11, as it's being called.
Yeah, one of my fears is what you mentioned, the technologies that will be developed, space lasers, right? And basically, I feel like they're going to use this to build out Skynet effectively, and then the war is not going to go on forever. However long, if it is World War III and it lasts a couple of years and millions of people die afterwards, those technologies then will be brought home. And it's interesting. The mainstream media has been saying this is the Israeli 9/11, and I guess they don't realize that a majority of the people understand the American 9/11 as a false flag operation, and now. And as you just laid out, looking at the evidence, this was a stand down. This was a type of false flag operation by the Israeli side. And then, just to mention, Alexander Dugin tweets today. He says it appears Ukraine was just a preface for something much bigger. New front lines manifest themselves on much broader scale. My fellow Croat, Alex Craner, also said the same thing, that the Middle East now is another front of the same, World War III. And then, we're seeing people, there was the communications minister in Israel who said now they want to be able to, if you commit a thought crime now in Israel, questioning the regime, they can come to your house, take you away. They can expropriate your house. And now, the reports, whatever one thinks of Rainer Fulmick, he was in Mexico, in Tijuana, renewing his passport at the German embassy. They just renditioned him now to Germany, reportedly. You had Craig Murray, former British ambassador, coming from Iceland to UK, just been arrested by the counterterrorism forces. It's...
See you later.
We're 2.5 minutes to midnight. James, thoughts on that or anything else?
Have a good one.
I think you're right. We're in an extremely grave situation on so many different fronts, and some of those recent moves should be concerning to all of us. Again, regardless of what you think about Middle East regional politics and what have you, and the religious issues and all of that, it's even bigger than that, because again, this could be the spark in the powder keg that sets off a worldwide conflagration. And can you imagine, hey, maybe it's everything all simultaneously. Maybe Israel, Gaza lights off at the same time that some Ukraine, Russia nuke goes off at the same time that China takes Taiwan. And the entire world could be completely, utterly changed forever in 24 hours. That's the way this could go. And I'm not saying it will go that way, and I'm not saying that we should all be just sitting there, munching popcorn, watching the show and being afraid. But I'm saying be aware that we are in extremely grave times. And again, other than preparing yourself and your community to handle whatever is going to come, what else can we do? Again, vote for your preferred savior of choice. 2024, guys, it's the most important selection of your lifetime. Garbage, nonsense. But anyway, vote if you want. But in the meantime, try doing something in the real world to prepare yourself and your community for what's coming.
And none of this means, that we are sad or depressed daily. We talk about this, we internalize it, we prepare, but also, people have a balanced life, enjoy life, do art, spend time with friends and family, and I'm chipper. I'm in the face of all of this. Yeah, it's depressing, but we got to keep our spirits up. And we're just about out of time. Last minute, tell us, where can we find you? Best way to support Corbett Report.
CorbettReport.com, CORBETT report.com. Best way to support the work is just to get it out to others, and let me underline what you're saying there. Absolutely, do not sit there living in fear, cowering, watching the spectacle. Live your life. The reason I am worked up, the reason I am passionate is because I love my life. I love this world. I love my family. I love my friends. I want more of this. So that is the impetus for what I do, not out of fear or rage or anything.
I supply only the finest goods. Go with honor, friend.
Welcome to the Grand Theft World podcast, hosted and sponsored by the members of GrandTheftWorld.com. If you're not a member yet, you're missing out. We've got town halls, we got extracurriculars, all sorts of cool people on the other side. Be sure to check it out at GrandTheftWorld.com. There's a little blue box at the top of the website when it works, because somebody crashed it today. They must not want this show to go on tonight, but it's going on anyway. GrandTheftWorld.com members, check it out. All right, so now, it's been a really slow news week. So we've got a short show. It'll be about 10, 15 minutes tonight. And then we're out. We're going to watch some sports. And no, that's not what happened. Last episode, last time we dropped off about 4 a.m. in the morning on Monday. It was like day 2/3 of the prequel to World War III. And since then, there's about 2,500 dead Palestinians. There's a bunch of dead Israelis. There's some dead Hamas people in the midst of that. We've also lost 1,600 buildings in Gaza that have been leveled by Israeli bombing. We're going to have to see if this self-defense / retaliation fits the situation. There's a lot to get into. A lot of people are heated and very emotional. And this is an opportunity where we take the week's news, we step back for a minute with that fragmented mentality of, view of the world from mainstream media, and we say, are all these things true? Because if it's not true, if it's hyperbolized, it's probably not going to help us moving forward. One of the other stories that came out this week was the alleged beheading of 40 babies in the Hamas attack. Israeli babies were beheaded. This spun around the world, and as Mark Twain said, the lie can get around the world before the truth can get its pants on. And when the truth got its pants on, we started to see maybe there's not evidence for that. Maybe it is propaganda. Maybe there is hyperbolization that covers what type of agenda. Why would people hyperbolize when the situation's bad enough? You've got Israelis that are women and children slaughtered, randomly, just, strafing with bullets everywhere. Not a military target type of attack, or maybe a target of opportunity. We're going to have to check that out too. Maybe some of the things we thought all week were true might not flesh out as being true. So this is where we take the news, we intersect it with the history and the evidence available at the current time. We try to get a better idea on what's going on. It might turn out that, yes, the attack was horrible, and yes, it's a terrorist attack for sure, but the beheading
You guys the guy like a motherfucker.
Investigated before we go much further, because it's being used as justification for genocide, for ethnic cleansing, and other things, as we'll hear from the clips tonight. Also, the self-defense strategy of just open air bombing, the cutting off of power, of electricity, power and electricity, same thing, water, plumbing, sanitation, food, internet, all these sort of things, being done to 2 million people, where half the population is under the age of 18, which technically makes them children. That's a situation that should also be looked at from an international perspective, because we do have war crimes and these sort of ideas of you can do this but not this, because we're supposed to be a civilized world. And sometimes when people get all emotional, they lose their humanity temporarily. Like a fit of the mind in wartime, the fog of war, some people call it. Mass formation psychosis, some people call it. So it's important to stay calm, cool, collected, and we do that by having, this isn't our first rodeo, this isn't the first time we've had to look into tough topics, and to check out the spectrum of information that's available, because the official narrative is only giving the public a slice. And my argument is all these other facts that are occluded or occulted from the conversation, are probably very substantial and meaningful if included back in that narrative, and you can make an informed decision on such things. So, last week, we played several clips detailing how Hamas had origins with the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood and how that stemmed from Western intelligence services, specifically MI6 and CIA, post-World War II, where they were grooming Arab, Nazi, fascist proxy armies to be used as an opposing side to their Hegelian dialectic, their neocon strategies of preemption, these sort of things. So we're also going to have to get into a little more of that history because there is a terrorist attack for sure. Are the people who are being persecuted for that attack, is that a form of collective punishment, or is this how we actually track down the terrorists? I don't know. We're going to have to ask these questions, approach these topics with curiosity and not certainty predetermined before we even look at the evidence, because that would be the epitome of ignorance, and that is the opposite, the antithesis of what this show is about. So, without further ado, let's kick off with Luke Rudowski from wearechange.org and thebestpoliticalshirts.com. Let's get his report from earlier today, and then we'll get underway.
I think someone failed to do the homework assignment with what they were protesting for, and no, that was not a Ryan Long video, and looks like a video coming from the United Kingdom. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. My name's Luke Rudowski here of wearechange.org, and there's a lot of absolutely crazy and wild news to get into today, as of course we are on a road that is very tumultuous, to say the least, as there's a bigger conflict brewing right now in the Middle East, as domestically things here inside of the United States are getting more confusing with some very mixed signals from the Biden administration. This, as it's almost guaranteed that there's going to be more chaos ahead of us. We're going to be talking about that, plus a lot more, all here on this independent media organization. If you like the shirt that I'm wearing, you could get it on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. And of course, the clip that we played in the beginning of this broadcast was originally highlighted by Andy Nog on Twitter, that found this video from the UK showing a popular Arab Muslim TikToker who wasn't that pleased from the support he was getting from, the very diverse community that the establishment loves to promote so much. A lot of mixed signals there, to say the least, as the response to this has been absolutely hilarious. And as the streets of the world become more confusing, they're also becoming way more violent, as we keep hearing horror story after horror story of district attorneys that are just excusing and allowing some of the most awful crimes to happen in the streets of America, which now the FBI director, who has been focused on his political opponents and, of course, concerned parents that show up at PTA meetings, while also, of course, listing people who support the former president of the United States as extremist, has now come out and is warning about the rise of a potential terror threat here inside of America, as he is saying that there's a big potential for copycat attacks on U.S. soil to what just happened in Israel. Just as it's pretty clear, the priorities of the United States federal government definitely haven't been considerate of legitimate threats, while, of course, there was an open border policy, a total shifting of the resources to focus on political opponents, and larger political speech censorship efforts, which the FBI headed and implemented specific policies that went after and silenced American individuals from being able to express their political ideas on social media. The FBI literally directed multiple resources and agents on this particular cause, and now they are warning us that we are unprepared and that there's a big potential for some big threats coming our way. Gee, I wonder why. And in similar lawfare news, today we're also finding
I wouldn't
out
want
that
anything
Javier
like that.
Milei, the conservative/anarchist presidential candidate that is leading in the polls of the Argentinian presidential race, has been officially charged by an Argentinian court for making the Argentinian currency drop in value, like it hasn't been dropping in value already because of the
Whichever one
communist
resells for more, I guess.
central banking policies that have absolutely destroyed that nation and its money and the savings that some people have in their bank accounts. All of this is happening as political tensions are ramping up to the point where we are becoming more and more divisive and clearly living under a two-tier justice system, as we're finding out that the DOJ just shut down another campaign finance prosecution against Hunter Biden. All of this as the White House cheers on and celebrates George Floyd today, honoring his life and legacy and calling the riot that were, quote, mostly peaceful according to CNN, and killed 36 amount of individuals, burning down property all throughout the United States, the, quote, largest civil rights movement in our nation's history. Yeah, and with those kind of larger psyopses and propaganda efforts, that's one reason why I launched the best political shirt. And that is the utter upheaval happening right now in the Middle East that is dealing with a lot of chaos, a lot of life loss. As we're getting the news reports that Hamas has announced that they have taken the lives of 9 hostages due to Israel not stopping its airstrikes on the Gaza region where they are located. This, as there's many accusations back and forth between these two larger factions. There's also a lot of disinformation. There's also a lot of propaganda. You don't know who to believe, but the United Nations is actually reporting right now that in the 8 days of this conflict, nearly 700 children, 614 to be exact, have lost their lives to this conflict. Again, these are children specifically that we are talking about, the most innocent in our society. This is just within the last few hours, Israel launched a strike that did take the lives of UN staff and Reuters journalists, national law, as clearly the civilian toll here coming up from the Iranian.
Let me skip around. Wow.
A very hopeful situation for the rest of the world, as of course Israel just stopped its
Literally
ground
don't care.
offensive in Gaza, allegedly delayed because of heavy rain and water. This, as a lot of theories are spreading to why this actually happened, as of course it's pretty clear that there's only going to be more escalations from here. And as Julian Assange once famously said,
That motherfucker retarded.
wars could be started by lies, peace can be started by truth, and that's why I think it's more imperative than ever that we do everything in our power here trying to de-escalate the situation. And of course, the ramifications of if it continues to escalate are absolutely grand, preposterous, and insane. That's why it's more important than ever for you to speak out, do your part. If you agreed with what I had to say in this particular video, share this.
All right. I guess it wasn't a slow news day as I thought at the top of the show. Sorry about that. Also, I have a...
You aggro hog, I'm right away.
we use it so little on the show. I forget what it's called. It's called a retraction. When we say something on the show that later we find out that wasn't correct and we have to correct it. All right. One has come to my attention, and I want you guys to know that when I said that David de Rothschild, who wrote the Global Warming book, remember him? David de Rothschild? Because he's a real guy, and he really wrote this book.
Correct.
But he's not the same David de Rothschild who is behind PredictWise, the
Correct.
COVID tracking project. Even though they have the same name,
Correct.
it's slightly different, and they're different people, and they do kind of look alike. So I thought that the PredictWise guy had gotten a haircut, put on a bow tie, and now the smart guy's over there now. But they're two different smart guys. So I just wanted you guys to know if that is the worst error we've made, 150 plus episodes, then Alpha and I stand admonished. And
just want to give a shout out to Senna for making us aware of that.
Yes, thank you, Senna.
Yep,
Sorry, I
appreciate that.
forgot to mention that last week, but there was a war breaking out with Israel and Palestine. I forgot about it.
Yeah,
So I did want to get that on the record. And also, tonight's episode, we're not going to have a lot of topics like we usually do. So if you're watching this episode, this is not a typical episode of this show, because typically there's not like the pre-show for World War III going on. So we kind of have to like cover it, because I think the more people who get this type of information sooner, the less time on the field some of these inaccuracies, hyperboles, war propaganda straight out psychological warfare things can exist because they get diminished when people critically think and don't just react, because it's all set up around people reacting, emotional reaction. You make a decision, you find out 6 later, oh, she worked for the Kuwaiti ambassador? What? So she was lying? Like, people have a hard time believing that public relations firm like Hill & Knowlton would take the ambassador's daughter and put her out there. They took the babies from the incubators, and then they did, right? That whole thing, they made it up ahead of time because they know you got a big heart, and they can pull on those strings. And to protect our hearts, we need intellectual self-defense. We need to think critically about these things, because atrocities are atrocities. We don't need to be lied to about them. Lying to us about it doesn't make us react faster or fund it more, right? Or change our ethics on genocide. So let's just start in these places. If there's a retaliation that has to happen, that's fine. I understand that. You declare war, it's fine. I understand that. But don't call it self-defense. And when you shut off the water and electricity and plumbing for women and children, and there's people in hospitals that can't be moved, and you tell those people, they got to move. You got a 3-hour window. There's one road open. Come on, you guys are better than that.
Including one of the hospitals that has, unfortunately, one of the young women that was attacked by Hamas. She was
All you
at
do
a
is come to me.
Palestinian hospital being treated for her injuries, and that hospital obviously was using emergency power with generators, and it was, it's unlikely that she probably survived because the electricity went out, which means that Israel in some capacity is sacrificing those individuals as well, people that are infected.
Told you it was easier over here, dum-dum. Good, I don't have any abilities on here. Let's see. Oh, I think battle sounds that cool. Nice land. I was hoping for crit. No crits. How the fuck do you only have 5? Or if you don't hurry the fuck up. Do you disconnect or something? No. Worst kind of player. Communication, what's that? Ding and Sparkle Sparkle. Where's this guy going? Golly. Bro, nope, nope. Golly, there's like an eyelash or something. Get the fuck out of here.
Have in control room tonight, we got Justin and we got Chris, because LD's on the road this week. He's visiting family, and Justin and Chris were nice enough to step into the hot seat, and because Tony and I just do our regular thing, they're the ones that have to make it stream, do all the magic stuff, magic elf stuff, right? So I chose that clip to kick off the show because of a couple of things. I think it reflects the general mentality as taught in America. World War II happened. Jews were persecuted. They needed a place of protection of their own. There's a lot of Arab countries. There's like 12 Arab countries. Why
Well
shouldn't
met
the Jews
for the
have their own
Alliance.
country? It makes logical sense, but that is not what happened.
Light bless you.
And everything that he just said neglects the 7 hours we put into the record last week.
Last week, correct.
Any part of which would give elucidation to someone like him, and therefore his audience of millions of people, that this has been going on. Now you could argue easily 1881 colonization forward, and then the same family that started colonization built the capital, the Knesset, and so there's a continuity.
There's also,
I'm not saying it's ominous continuity. Good for them for starting their own country. I think that the history should be known, and then people wouldn't argue over things they don't understand.
Yeah, I think there's also an issue from context, historically speaking. A lot of times you hear him right there with Steven Crowder. Ben Shapiro does the same thing, where they start at 1948, and obviously we spent 7 hours. It could have spent an entire week. I'm not
And
kidding
then
when I
the
say
other
that.
fallacy right there is they say stuff like, we got to start in 1948 because we're not going back to the Old Testament 3,000 years ago. But why can't we go back to the Balfour Declaration, where the British mandate put this all together, and then they sat back and let them fight for the past 80 years?
That's my point, is like there was already assimilation with much of the Jewish population, especially European nations. Why did that disintegrate so badly? What were the conditions that caused for that disintegration, and it gave rise to the Holocaust, for example? You know, there's a lot of context that's missing as to then the aliyahs in, you know, these forced migrations from Europe, North Africa, and other areas in order to get Jews to actually go to Israel, because they weren't that interested initially until the tragedy of the Holocaust took place. We talked about the transfer agreement and the aliyahs that took place last week. So that's an important context. You know, we could bring out actually a famous British historian who wrote the book called The World at War, or the War of the World, or The World at War, I think is what the name of it. I'll find it. I have the book. And the reason why it's interesting is he mentions that in the early 1900s, the Jews were well assimilated in Germany, of all places. In fact, there was a marriage between a famous Rothschild and a prince of Germany at the time, or one of the regions that then became Germany under Bismarck in 1864. And that showed, as, you know, although there was some, you know, backlash for it, it showed that there was a beginning assimilation. In fact, Germany was the most open nation for allowing the Jews to settle there, at least in the Ashkenazi, the European Jewish sects and population. So what caused that disintegration to take place to give rise to a situation like the Third Reich, and then obviously what manifested with the Holocaust? There's a lot of history there, and it's not just that the Jews necessarily deserve a homeland. Why in which were they able to get along in all these various nations, or at least be able to have some ability to live their lives as normal human beings, and with other religious factions, other secular populations that pre-existed in many of these various nations? What caused that disintegration, and then also what forced a sort of, through the propaganda campaign and through the Zionist sort of ideal, them to manipulate those populations into Israel? You know, missing that context really creates a massive neglected aspect, from which I see a number of posts throughout this week, including one
the Alliance,
such as Steven Crowder many times, to build straw man arguments. You know, when you neglect all these aspects of history, that's going to
what can I help you with?
Of decontextualization, and as the objectivists would say, knowledge is fundamentally contextual. So we need to take in all the available information to help us be able to provide a truthful viewpoint or vantage point from which to view this situation today.
So we're going to unfold things kind of slowly and methodically tonight, not so shooting from the hip. We're going to actually aim tonight.
Quick draw.
And yeah, so no quick draw. We're going to use, I mean, this is bad metaphor. We should use this.
Yeah.
All right. Rewind. All right, so let's check out what happened in the first 100 hours of the war. We're going to go to Israel Hamas, the first 100 hours, and
and shrug. I think Israel would much rather answer for why there are no longer Palestinians in the region than have Palestinians in the region. I think they want to establish facts in the field. When you put together everything that we know about the warnings that they had, yes, very much like the theory that Pearl Harbor was allowed to happen to get us into the war, whether that's true or not true. I think this was definitely a case where, especially with Netanyahu in charge, that they wanted an excuse to further drive Palestinians out of that territory. In the end,
well, it wouldn't make much difference, Tony, if they shut off the power and water and all this stuff, and it could have been prevented, right? It wouldn't make much difference for the story as it rolls out.
No difference at all. You know, we wouldn't be on the precipice of World War III.
It'd be like if America knew ahead of time that
no difference.
The tower's going to be attacked, Pentagon's going to be attacked, but they did nothing. Like, that wouldn't make a difference, because we'd still have the Patriot Act anyway, right?
Oh, you mean the one that was pre-drafted before the events of 9/11 was ready to go?
Yeah, just like the results of the 9/11 Commission were drafted before they started the investigation.
Oh, how convenient! You know, that's
which was headed up by a guy whose PhD was in creating public myths, but there's nothing to see there.
Who now was the sort of project manager for the COVID Collaborative, as Maddie Bannon's fantastic work has explicated. So.
Now, before we go to the next couple clips, I just wanted to bring up, we were just talking about 9/11, and we got 9/11 back in the day, it was like 20-some years ago. This is something that happened. This is one of the anthrax letters. Take penicillin, death to America, death to Israel, Allah is great. That's an interesting piece of evidence. Let's look at another piece. Here's another one. You cannot stop us. We have the anthrax. You die now. Are you afraid? Death to America, death to Israel.
They get a 10-year-old to write this?
At least they had like their footer consistent. They're like, we have to put this on our letterhead, right? So they know it's us. So,
but they print that at the same place they printed the jihadist material for Al Qaeda or the Mujahideen, to be specific. You know, that was the point that was brought up in Who Killed John O'Neill. They literally printed the material for Islamic Jihad from the Mujahideen in America and sent it over there to Afghanistan to radicalize that population against the impending invasion from the Soviet Union in the mid-1980s.
And because these are coming from some radical, Hamas, Hezbollah, Al Qaeda, ISIS type terrorists, Tony, they know their handwriting's not up to par. It's going to be suspect. So they're going to put 4th grade as cover.
I see.
They're pretty wily.
You need something?
Hey there.
Right? Now,
have a good
they
one.
blame
That's sophistication.
Safe travels.
Silence for it. Right? But he's got some non-denial denials, they say. Right? There's doubts about the FBI conclusions. Right? So it just seems very convenient, because what do these letters establish in our culture? 9/11 just happened. Paul Bremer says it's Osama bin Laden. Ben Bernanke's wife, Judy Woodruff from CNN, she says it's bin Laden. We don't know until we get these anthrax letters, and we're like, geez, they're pen paling us now. Look, right? And people who took this as a reason to go to war with Iraq or Afghanistan, that's the official narrative.
No, ritual could be the thing that could arrest one's reason. And under a situation, one would immediately react to such a thing. Consider how real. I'm just considering the trauma-based mind.
Correct diagnosis for that. These were used to stir up a war, and later. Colin Powell holds up that violet anthrax. Mention to the audience. He said, I'm saying, with this violet anthrax, you can right? That whole thing he did, Dog and Pony Show. I remember I was alive. I was all into it back then, because this is after I saw buildings blow up and people in pieces, and I got interested in history. Put the pieces together. So I could see a motive that we would have to unite against the Muslim terrorists. And you know who benefits from that? Exactly America and Israel in these notes. So Israel and the United States are like joined at the hip in this crusade, this war on terror. Perfect. Because that happens to be exactly what they had planned in their right? So the Libertarian Party brings up their philosophy and it turns into neocon philosophy here in America. They write the strategy along with the actual formulations, which was co-authored by Philip Zelikow, who later becomes executive director of the 9/11 Commission.
Many of which
report.
were Leo Strauss
acolytes.
out of the University of Chicago.
Yeah. Synchronicity is strong with you. All right, so these guys, I'm pointing to there's war atrocities attached to this propaganda. There's war atrocities to Colin Powell. There's war atrocities attached to Mariah. Incubators, right? They play on people's emotions professionally. That's what psychological warfare. That's what public strategic communications companies. I'm not going to say
the
their names 'cause they're
Bernaysian.
very
That's
litigious, but they exist. Like, here's an
babies
example.
and bayonets.
So, Germany did very well through World War I a couple years in. They said, hey, let's call it quits. And Britain said, no, we're going to double down. We're going to bring in our cousin. And how that all got done, we talked about it last week, so we don't need to repeat ourselves. So that goes on, and then it sets up a
You want to go
whole
sleep?
century of failure for freedom, for liberty, for justice, for people's human rights. The amount of democide that's done under the guise.
Dang, dude, level 31.
It's like 300 million people. And that's not death from the wars. That's death by government other than these things.
Through the use of mind control or propaganda.
Dude made it over halfway to maximum.
The minds of men and women to act counter to that which exists, to reality, to reason, these sorts of elements. I think it's important to understand. I mean, I don't know, we'll get to it later, but many moons ago, like a year and a half ago, I played All Watched Over by Machines of
Right,
Living
so,
Grace Part 3.
good night.
Adam